When we talk about Canelo, we all know that we're talking about a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, the amount of things that he's done in his career, too many accomplishments to even list off. When we look at his resume, in my opinion, it's beyond question. It is beyond doubt. He's not one of these guys out there with all these suspicious opponents. We make jokes about the Amir Khan fight, and obviously, he's taking that fight at that point in his career and all those kinds of things. It was just a money grab to a point and this and that, and it was the name and blah, blah, blah. But really, when we push all that to the side and we just objectively look at the man's resume and we look at the accomplishments and the things that he's done, there is a reason why he's been at the top of the heap. There's a reason why so many people heap so much praise on this guy, right? He's went out there and he's earned it all. Think about that first fight with Triple G. Not the result of it. The fact that the man took it. Canelo was unquestionably the A side. He was at a point in his career when he did not need to go out there and fight a monster like Triple G. Took the fight anyways. Look at the way that fight turned out. Look at the result. The vast majority of people thought that he got a gift in the way that turned out and that it should have been a loss on his record. Turns around and fights the rematch. Again, did not need to do it. When you think about that fight with Lara, it wasn't that Lara was some crazy destroyer like we saw on Triple G, but man, what a nightmare to go and fight a guy who had a style like Arislandi Lara. He comes over, crashes the press conference that Canelo has after his win. Canelo looks at the reporters and just asks, right, real solemn, is this the guy you want to see me fight? Is this who I should fight next? Is this the guy that people think I'm ducking? Turns around and immediately makes the fight. And it wasn't some great fight. It wasn't some amazing performance, but it was a fight where it's like, dude, you run the risk of it just being so ugly and so nasty and people being disappointed and not wanting to see it and leaving, stinking out the arena and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. He went and he took the fight. Like he I get it. I get it with David Benavidez. I get that we all wanted to see that fight and that we can make a very logical and sane, justifiable argument that he avoided that fight. That he, I'll even go so far as to use the word duck. I certainly don't think the man was scared, but I also don't think that it was a fight that he wanted. And he certainly didn't go out there and make it happen. He could have, and he did not take it. Does he have to take it? But when you look at the course of his career, he's not a man who was avoiding tough fights. He's not a man who was ducking people. So the resume is there. The resume is there. And now let's talk about the money. Oh my God. Think about the amount of money that this man's made over the course of his career. The rumors that I heard that were being reported on was that just for this fight last night against Terrence Crawford, you're talking about $150 to $200 million. I mean, think that this is ridiculous money. When you look at all of these fights over the course of his career, all of the big names, the fact that he's been the cash cow, he has just been raking it in. Dump trucks full of $100 bills have just been backing themselves up in his driveway and just unloading them for a long time. I guarantee you the amount of sponsorships and partnerships that this dude has is probably ridiculous. And make no mistake about it, boxing isn't a secondary sport in Mexico like it is here. So the amount of money that flows his way as the number one boxer in Mexico is far more than the amount of money that makes its way and flows to the number one boxer in America. So dude has just been raking in money, right? Just shoveling it in. So you look at the resume, you look at what he's accomplished, you look at his legacy, the amount of money that he's made. Look at the wear and tear on his body and how much that he's gone through. There was nobody in the lead up to this fight who thought that this was a prime Canelo. How could it be? At his age and the amount of rounds that he's fought, 540 rounds as a professional fighter, 37, 38 years old. Everybody knows. Everybody, even guys who were picking him, guys who were picking Crawford, it didn't matter. Everybody said the same thing. We've seen some slippage. We've seen him fade a little bit. There's nobody out there in the game at his age who's done the things that he's done who hasn't slipped a little bit. So here's my thing. Is it time to hang up the gloves? Is it time for a guy like Canelo to turn around and say, enough's enough and ride off into the sunset? Few arguments to be made. Number one, we know it's not going to happen based off of what he's told us. So let's just kind of get that out of the way. We're not sitting here and speculating what it's actually going to be. In this press conference, he said pretty early on in the post-fight press conference, I did the best I could. I tried all I could. Terrence Crawford was the better than man tonight, but I will carry on. So we're going to see him again. And let's take the business side out of the conversation because I don't know about any contracts that he's signed for multi-fight deals that are going to have him raking in the money. I'm talking about it from a different perspective. I'm talking about it from him as a businessman, him as an athlete, him as a family man, him and the future and all of those types of things. So he can continue to make a massive amount of money without ever having to put on the pair of gloves again. Like Canelo has got that covered. He's got the legacy covered. He's got all those things taken care of. If I was whispering in his ear, I'd say be done with it, man. Be done with it, right? Everybody is out there just waiting to take a chunk out of him. Had for a long time, but now that you saw the fight with Bivol, now we've seen the fight with Crawford. We've seen the slippage continue to increase, which is all normal, right? These are all things that happen to older fighters, that they're just not the same guys that they used to be. Everybody is not only going to want to get a piece of that check when they're coming in and fighting him, but everybody's going to want to put him on the resume. So does he need to subject himself at this point in his career to that? Like just opening himself up as the old lion fighting the young lion, right? That wasn't the fight that we saw last night. Okay, what we saw last night was two fighters vying to be great. We're talking about what we're seeing as the result after this fight, right? What decisions that he would make going forward. And you look at the performance that we saw, the performances that we've seen over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, and we think about what he would look like over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Dude, why go out there and get beat up? Why go out there and potentially harm your legacy? I say potentially with quotes because personally, I don't feel like anything that a fighter does in the future can change what happened in the past. Whatever he went out there and accomplished, whatever he's earned, that can never be changed. That can never be tarnished in a lot of ways. You can tarnish a guy's image, but that legacy, that should remain intact because he went out there and already did it. It's written in the books, it's accomplished. But that's not the way a lot of guys look at it. There's going to be a lot of people out there. If he goes over, let's say he fights a couple more young, hungry dudes, maybe goes 50-50 in those fights, goes out there and gets beat up 1 or 2 times after that, fights a homecoming in Mexico, and then calls it quits 3-4 years from now. There's a lot of people who will look back and think that legacy is tarnished. Look at how people review Roy Jones. Roy Jones Jr. was the man, dude, Superman, fighter of the decade in the 90s, just an absolute phenom. Went all the way up and smashed John Ruiz for the heavyweight title, broke his nose. Went from 160 all the way up to heavyweight. People don't talk about him the same because of what happened afterwards. If he would have retired after what he did to John Ruiz, man, they'd have been talking about putting Roy Jones Jr. on Mount Rushmore, but they don't talk about him that way anymore because of that. So when we're talking about like Canelo, it seems as though he would have all the bases covered. Should he continue on? You would have to figure it's just because deep in his heart, that man is just such a competitor. He just can't leave things the way that they are. He just has to continue to go out there and make it happen. And for that, I salute him. Take my hat off, 100%. He should be able to do whatever he wants. But if I was the guy whispering in his ear, I'd be talking about a homecoming fight. One to hang it up. The farewell tour, so to speak. Wrap this up, move on to other things. He mentioned in this post-fight 2 things that I think really speak to this fact. Number 1, he said, sometimes you try, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, sometimes you try and your body just don't go. He said, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I was training hard, I was prepared, I was focused, but sometimes you try and you just don't go. And it was in reference to a question that was asked about his frustration. Man, you seemed frustrated out there, especially towards the 11th and the 12th round. Was it something that Crawford was doing? He said, Crawford's a great fighter, but sometimes you try and your body just doesn't go. That's what happens when you're old. And number 2, he said, I want to spend time with my family. I got a 1-month-old daughter in the back. She's too young. She can't even come out. I want to see him and spend time with him. So when you start to think about those things, that's the future. So let me know what you guys think. What do you think about the career? What do you think about the legacy? What do you think he would look like in the future? Do you want to see him perform? Or if you had 30 seconds to whisper in his ear, what kind of advice would you give him at this point? Let me know.